Welcome back. You're watching Ayubowan Sri Lanka and we are with Mr. C.A. Chandraprema, political correspondent of the island. So he referred basically in the first half of the Ayubowan Sri Lanka about the indication the vote has shown to the entire country, and he said that it shows stability and that people have voted for stability. He said that their generation also is something they've never experienced stability. So after 1977, and stability started entering the picture in 2005. And in a country where there's a system of executive presidency, he said that stability is related very closely with the temperament and the nature and the stability of the leader itself. And he took the example of the former President Kumaratunga to say that how her instability resulted in a not so stable period as well. And he was speaking that the masses have approved the role of the President Mahinda Rajapaksa as a stable leader, and he also drew parallels about the JVP's role in the south to that of the role of the TNA in the north. And he said the JVP thrives on instability and they want issues to perennially to go on. So similarly, he sees TNA also as a party that wants issues such like that. And what he said was this government has demonstrated in the past years that it's a government of all people, and the development that is happening in the east is unheard of before the last years. So according to that, what he said was, what is important is that there are other parties who want to have minority harmony and ethnic harmony, and it is with those factors that we have to go forward, and each and every person and ethnic community and their leaders have a stakeholder in the development of the economy and political stability, which precedes any stability before that. So on that note, Mr. Chandraprema, we will also move on to another question, issue that was surfaced during the elections, and that was the corruption issue and the allegations for corruption and the detrimental effect that it had on the economy as also. So what can you say about that? Now, is this something that has to be addressed immediately, and your comments on it?
Yeah, you know, I mean, corruption became a very popular issue during the election, and my concern with that was this. There was so much misinformation with regard to this whole issue. Now, if there is corruption, it has to be, I mean, the accusations of corruption have to be based on reality. There have to be actual instances of corruption to show concern about. But you found that what was created during the elections was just one mountain of lies. You know, it's not of benefit to anybody. I mean, now I represent a private media organization. Now we can't make any use of that because it's not true. It's all bunkum. Now I'll just show you one example. Now this is a report. This is a USAID report prepared by 4 economists in Sri Lanka. 2 of them are well-known individuals, Professor Indratna and Mr. Ayubowan. Now, here, this became the basis of many of these allegations. Now, so as to say that over the past years, 9% of the GDP has been lost due to corruption, and then you know, once that was said, there were others built on that, so as to say that you eliminate this corruption, you can recover so much, you know, say something like 200 billion a year. Now that multiplied by 4, the 4 years that President Rajapaksa was in power, comes to about 800 billion. And if you recover all that money, you can pay salaries, you can do this, you can do that. That was a mountain of lies. Because if you take this report, now how have they arrived at this figure of 9% per year being lost to corruption? There are some arbitrary estimates that they have come to. Now, for example, in this report it said that 20% of government capital expenditure, that is on building roads, buildings, all that kind of thing, what the government spends, what both the central government and the provincial government spend on infrastructure, is lost due to corruption. Now, when I read this report and tried to find out on what basis they have come to that conclusion of 20%, how do you come to a figure like that? There was nothing in this to show that. And I asked the central bank governor, Mr. Ajit Niwad Cabral, how they have come to this figure. He says God only knows. There are no parameters that they have established to arrive at such a figure. It's just some arbitrary thing they have plucked from somewhere. And what Mr. Cabral said was this, that if there has been corruption in an infrastructure project, the way to find out is to commission an independent study to find out whether it could have been done for less, whether the road could have been built for less or the building could have been built for less. Now, if that is so, then perhaps you can say that, okay, there's a percentage like this, which which could have been due to corruption. But in this case, there's no such study. It's just an arbitrary figure plucked from somewhere. Then they had done something even more dangerous. You see, I mean, the responsible people doing this, they have done something even more dangerous, which is they have just arbitrarily said that the government has not been collecting 3% of the GDP, the equivalent of 3% of the GDP in terms of government revenue, taxes. They say that this has been lost due to corruption and all kinds of things. Now, when you say that, when you say 3% of the GDP, that would amount to over 15% of total government revenue. Now, that again is a figure they have plucked from nowhere. There are no grounds to say, I mean, okay, why should it be 3%? Why can't it be 5%, 10% more? How do you estimate the loss at 3% exactly? Can't it be 1%? It can even be 10%. But they have not said anything. You can't just pluck figures out from the sky and put it forward and say, okay, this is corrupt. This is the extent of corruption in the country. So there has been a dangerous exercise like this here. Now, for example, if somebody believed that story, that 3% of the GDP was lost, or that 15% of government revenue was not coming in because of corruption, now say a JVP-led government might try to collect that. And how do you collect revenue? By increasing taxes across the board. And they'll want to. And if you can't increase taxes on essential items, right, or indirect taxes on say goods and services like say cigarettes and liquor and things like that, you can't. I mean, there's a limit to which you can increase. Then they go on to income taxes. And how do you collect income tax? By raiding business houses, giving them inflated estimates, and telling them either pay up or we are going to court. Right? So what this will do is, this will drive people into bankruptcy, to suicide, and that kind of thing. So these are arbitrary figures. 20% of government revenue is lost due to corruption, they say, and about 15% of government revenue is not collected. That is also corruption, they say. And certain losses mentioned in the Auditor General's report. They have ordered all that together, plus the losses of the CEB. Now, everybody knows that the losses of the Ceylon Electricity Board, which would amount to about 15 billion rupees, is not necessarily due to corruption. It's due to the fact that they can't increase the electricity rates above a certain amount. And there's a mismatch between the cost of fuel and the electricity rate, and that is the main reason for the loss in the CEB. Now, despite that too has been included under corruption, and that is how they have come to this amount of something like 240 billion rupees a year. And they have said, okay, 240 billion is about 9% of the GDP in 2007. So that is how they calculate. Now, all this is nonsense. It's basically nonsense. I mean, you can't just pluck figures from the sky and say that this is the level of corruption. Now, this is at one level. Then at the second level, you found that now when you have